Everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Aditya, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about why I love Arch Linux. So, if you're new to the channel or if you don't know anything about Linux, Arch Linux is basically a distribution. Linux itself is just the Linux kernel, it's like the base, but it's not an entire operating system which can be compared to Windows or Mac OS. But when you add on different layers and different applications, it becomes a complete operating system that you can use as a comparative desktop operating system to either Windows or Mac OS. And Arch Linux is definitely popular, not maybe not as popular as the ones you might have heard of, like Ubuntu or Pop OS or Linux Mint. But this is something that I really like, and if you do your research, you'll probably find that most Linux users start at different points, and a lot of them end up with Arch Linux. And it is quite hard for you to start with, so this is not something I'll recommend for beginners, but I recommend everyone to, at least in some point of time, even if they don't use it completely, at least try the installation for the Arch Linux, because you do the entire thing yourself and you get a very good idea of how computers work in general. So let me start right now. I'm just going to show you my browser, and this is the Arch Linux website. So if you have any plans of learning about it or doing an installation, this website's amazing. This is their official website, and the Arch wiki is just an amazing resource. I've not seen any other software documented this well, and you'll probably hear that from other people too. Even if you go to the Debian website, for example, I feel it's a mess. It's really hard to find where things are. Even though it might not be the best looking website, it's quite decent. It's easy to understand and navigate. So that's really good. So the one of the main reasons that I really like Arch Linux is, first, it's extremely simple and you choose what you want into your system. So normally what happens is the people who create the distribution, usually it starts with some kind of base. Like if you take Ubuntu, it's based on Debian, and the people who have created Ubuntu, they pre-install it with helpful software, so that the moment you finish installing a system, you can start working immediately. So maybe you want to have a lightweight install where you manually install all the software you want. For example, your word processing software, a music player maybe, or if you want everything to work out of the box, you can get it pre-installed. So these kind of things are packaged and it comes with the distribution. But Arch Linux, it takes a different approach where they just give you the bare necessities to get started, the bare utilities and tools, and you install and configure everything that you want. So this is the approach that Arch Linux takes, and this helps it become extremely lightweight. It's definitely performant, and it has large hardware support. And the other main difference is Arch Linux is a rolling release distribution. That means it doesn't have, these main how do I say it? Like these LTS versions that you have in other distributions. For example, Debian is definitely not a rolling release distribution. If I'm right, every few years or every 6 months, they have their stable release, stable version that you can download and use. But Arch Linux, every month or every week or sometimes every day, you have a new version which you can keep updating and stay on the latest bleeding edge. So as a result of this different type of versioning, the system might not always be as stable as Debian based distributions or anything similar to that, because those are much more heavily tested than this, even though this is still tested. But for me, it's not a big deal, and I like to stay on the latest versions. The other thing is the packages, the package management, which I really love. So every distribution comes with its own package manager, at least the most common ones. And if you take Ubuntu, anything Debian based, usually it comes with APT. You can install additional ones, for example, the snaps, flatpaks, or homebrew. That's popular on Mac OS. That's also there on Linux. If you have, let's say, something Fedora, Red Hat, something based on that, you will have a DNF or RPM as a package manager. For Arch Linux, you have something called Pacman. Now, the exact way it works, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but the reason I like it is almost every software that I can think of is included in either the official Arch Linux repositories or in the AUR, the Arch user repositories, which I'll get into shortly. So when I go into this packages page, you can see this page over here, and you see a list of repositories over here. So there are multiple official repositories. You have the community testing, core, extra. So the ones that are enabled by default is the community, core, and extra, if I'm right. There are other ones too. For example, I think Multilib has a few extra software that's on 32-bit systems, and then you have these testing repositories, which have usually more later features, but they're not thoroughly tested. So if you want, you could enable them, but it's not enabled by default. And I can do a quick search here. For example, if I want to see, I have a list of searches I've done. Maybe I want to install OBS. So OBS Studio for my recording and streaming. I can do a search over here, and it does a search across all the repositories, and I can see OBS Studios there on the community repo. So all I need to do is open the terminal or any GUI application that acts as a front end for Pacman, and I can do Pacman with the capital S flag and then OBS-Studio, and it's going to install. I don't need to worry about what repository exactly it's on. I just need the program name and it's installed. If it's not over here, most likely because it's proprietary or it's not as popular, it's going to be in the AUR, the Arch user repository. So this is something that's a little bit more accessible and modifiable by anyone, the users and the community. So for example, if I want to include a software that's not there, I technically could. It's definitely going to be reviewed by someone, but it's not as heavily reviewed as the official repositories. So for example, let's see. I don't know what I recently did. Maybe I can search for the Brave browser. So I can do a search for Brave and hit enter. So I can similarly does a search over here, and I can see the list of packages available here. So the way you generally look at this is maybe the maintainer, if you know who's maintaining it, the description, and the most important thing is the votes and the popularity. So because it's done by the community, there's going to be multiple versions, and sometimes you want to be careful to not install the wrong version, as it might have bugs or might be a virus. That's extremely uncommon, but that's possible. So usually the ones with the most popularity and votes is the one that you need. So the reason I like this is, as I was coming to, is it's one standard command to install packages. So if it's not there in the official repos, it's going to be in the AUR, and it's extremely easy to install, because even though Debian based ones are much more widely popular than Arch Linux, software developers usually target those first, and software is available for those repos first. But the problem is again that each software has a different installation instruction. So for example, if you take let's say something like a browser, maybe Google Chrome or something, or if you want to install OBS Studio itself, or you want to let's say install Skype or Zoom, each program or software that you want to install has a different instruction. Maybe it has the executable or the binary file, the .deb file on Debian based systems. You install that, or sometimes it might be the entire source code which you have to install from that. Or sometimes they might give you a link to their repository. You need to add their repository and then install it. So depending on the software, the installation instructions are going to differ. But on Arch Linux, it's one simple installation. All I need to do is go to their website and search, find the exact name of the program, and then it's one simple command for any software that I can think of, and I can install it. I've been using this for quite a while, and almost every software that I can think of has existed on either the AUR or the official Arch repos, and it's worked amazing, and that's one of the reasons I like it. And another reason is again tying back to the initial point, where it's like a do-it-yourself thing. It's no specific path that you can follow. It's completely up to you. So usually by default on Linux systems, a file system is ext4, which is very good and much more superior to the Windows and Apple file systems. But if you want something even better, for example, the Btrfs file system, you can do that too. Then maybe you can add snapshots, so automated snapshots using a program called Timeshift. So every time you boot up, you start up your computer, you can see a list of versions that you can roll back to. So for example, you install something or you break your system, right? So all you need to do is shut it down and start again, and you can roll back to a previous version of your computer using those backups. That's extremely helpful. Another thing you can do is system-wide your hard drive level encryption, which I used to do on previous distributions, but since I did install myself on Arch Linux, I haven't done it. So if you want, you could encrypt the entire hard disk itself. So in case your laptop is stolen, this is mainly important on portable devices such as laptops. Even if the laptop gets stolen and they try to remove your hard drive and access your data, they won't be able to because it's encrypted. So that's one possibility. Or you don't need to encrypt the entire hard drive. You can just encrypt a specific directory. So the possibilities are almost endless, and this simplistic do-it-yourself approach is something that I really like. And I think this is something very good, especially for people who are getting into Linux and want to explore more, and anyone in general, because when you use Arch Linux, it gives you a very good idea of how computers work in general, I said. Because if you want printers to work, you need to install the printing service, the hardware drivers for your printers. If you want Bluetooth to work, you need to install those services. If you want Wi-Fi or network to work in general, you need to install those. Any software that you need, the microcode for your processor, the drivers for your GPUs, for your CPU, everything has to be installed by you, and you get to very good understanding of how these work. So even if you have an issue, if you want to get help, it's very easy to get help because you probably have a general idea of where things have gone wrong, even if you don't know how to exactly fix the problem yourself. So that wraps up this video. I hope you found it interesting and useful. I'm planning of making a full installation of Arch Linux, one video for the base installation and one maybe for the graphical one, the later part, adding a window manager, a display manager, maybe a tiling window manager if needed, or just fully fledged desktop environment like GNOME or KDE, or something simple like XFCE. So if you want to see that also, let me know in the comments. That might take a little while, but probably that's definitely going to come up in the future. So thank you for watching.